when we focus on our identity and allow intuition to lead the way, that's where it's a real game changer, and being able to understand what used to be running the show so you're not bringing those patterns into the next level of your business.
Hello and welcome to the Driven Female Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Melitta Campbell, award-winning business coach and value whisperer. Each week on this show, I share business building wisdom from my own experiences and those of a range of successful women. My aim is to help you dream bigger and achieve more by learning from what works and gaining actionable tools, tips and insights from women who are building a range of amazing businesses. Today I'm speaking with Louisa Havers, an internationally renowned intuitive business success coach, creator of the Helix Method and master Akashic Records teacher. Years spent leading change in the highly pressurized and stressful social services sector led to shingles and chronic fatigue, compelling her to break free from the corporate matrix of overwork. It was the first step to creating her own life of freedom and dream business income. Louisa's mission is to help 1 million souls to thrive as they live their fullest expression and break through their money ceiling so they can activate quantum leaps to success. And today Louisa is going to be sharing how you can take your first steps on that journey. So hi Louisa, it's great to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And I know I say this every week, I'm really excited. But as a busy entrepreneur running my business around my family and my dog and everything else that's going on in my life, then we're going to talk a little bit about energy and how that plays into your business. But it's not necessarily just about your vitality, but more how we can use energy as a strategy in our business to help us perform at our best. We haven't covered that on the show to date, and I think it's going to be a really, really interesting topic. So I'm looking forward to diving into that. But Louisa, I'd love it if before we get to that, if you could just introduce yourself to the audience and share your story. How did you get to where you are today?
Yes, well, my background's very different to what I do now. So I used to be a senior manager in social services, and I did that for 13 years, so a long time. And I was leading on developing multi-million-pound services, and I loved it. I did love it, the autonomy that I had, how we were making an impact with our local communities. And the bit I realized as I was going through and leading all those service developments was the bit that I really loved doing was coaching people, because we had a coaching program within the organization. And I did have a lot of people coming to me, and they all wanted to up level, to have opportunities to go for promotions. And I recognized through diving and working with them that many times actually they didn't really want a promotion. They wanted to fulfill their purpose in life, and their purpose had evolved. Their values had changed. They had completely changed whilst they were within the organization. And so often I'd be guiding them to really considering their next steps more broadly and perhaps leaving the job. And then I realized, this is kind of feeling like it's a little reflection of what's going on internally for me as well, recognizing that I had changed too. And so I think there were two key turning points for me. One was that realization of actually, do you know what? I really want to take a leaf out of all the advice the book that I'm giving everybody else, and to do something different. And I'd recognized that one of the turning points was my father's death back in 2004, where he was ill health retired, and he died after a long period of ill health. And so he never got the retirement that he planned. And he'd been saving up for all these things that he said he was going to do when he retired. And that just started gnawing away at me, because I felt like I was on that same corporate hamster wheel, if you like. And I was like, I am going to end up doing the exact same thing as my dad, because I kept having to put things off. I just felt like I was too busy for life, because the job was all consuming and was taking up all my time. And then the second one was that we'd had, anyone in the public sector who's had experience in the public sector will recognize this. We'd had pay freezes for, felt like eternity, but it was about 8 years while I was working there. And that really kicked me into gear, because, you know, every time they had a restructure, they'd give us more work, no more money. And so I was just working harder for actually kind of less money in effect. And so I'd started thinking, I've got to give myself a pay rise. And so I started thinking more creatively, and I was like, I want my own business. I'm running businesses within this organization. I know how to do it. I want to have something that's really lighting me up. And at that point, I didn't really know what it was. I call it living in the energy of the question, of just being in inquiry of what could this be, and open to possibility. And I actually manifested the perfect opportunity for me at that stage, which was a network marketing company that I was just able to pick up. It was like a business in a box that I could just fit it in alongside working my senior management job. And so I was able to start increasing the income on that side, coaching people within that business, and got to a point where I was like, oh, I can make the leap now, because I'd created another income stream. And so it was at that point that I was like, right, I want to have my own coaching business, doing what I love, still in that space of, can I really do it? As I finally took the leap. And I say finally because it actually did take me probably, I'd say, about 3 years from the decision of, right, I'm leaving, it mentally in my head, I'm going to go for it, and to be able to make that transition and finally to be able to do it, because I'm a single parent, so the responsibility is on me to take care of all the bills in the household, etc., and to look after my kids. So that was my journey of how I then found myself running my own business. And, I've been running my business now for 6 years. So it's been a wonderful journey, continued, of course, along that way. It's a little bit like when you're pregnant and you're like, I'm going to have a baby. And you think all the process is creating the baby and being pregnant, but actually the true work starts as you give birth. So I remember when I'd left and I felt like I'd been reborn into this next level version of myself, which was so exciting and terrifying. The same time, because I'd got so used to who I was in that old role, and it really started to open up this. We were talking before about our identities, that actually my identity was completely changing as I became an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so you mentioned there you had this question of, can I really do it? And you'd taken a step with your network marketing business, which I've run one of those in the past as well, and they are great for giving you the basic foundation of what it takes to run a business and building your mindset and belief. I think that's one thing it's brilliant for. But was that enough to help you get over this idea of, can I really do it? Because you were going into something so different.
I think what I didn't expect, I thought it was, in that I'd had all the background experience of running businesses and multi-million-pound, services within a social care, and running a very successful network marketing business. But what I realized once, because of course I was running the network marketing business alongside the income I had in social care, so there is that safety net there. And the moment that I actually took that leap, what I hadn't anticipated wasn't around the learning and growth that I needed to do to run my own business, which of course we're always growing and learning as we're evolving. The business is going to require different things to focus on along its own journey, was how I viewed myself and the identity that I had, my concepts of myself. The analogy I think people can relate to is when you go from, my sons relate to this with school, when they always used to say, go from being top of the form, when you're in that primary school and everybody knows who you are and you're respected because you're in that top form, and then you go to secondary school and you're in that lower form, nobody knows who you are, and you're starting again and you don't know the rules and you don't know the expectations, and you have that complete shift in identity there. So it felt a little bit like that. It felt like I was in a big ocean instead of a little goldfish bowl, if that makes sense, where I didn't know the rules in this world, and I had to start again in terms of building all the relationships, because of course relationships are absolutely everything. And so for me, I think the bit that kind of was a surprise, because I hadn't really thought about it, was you're going to have to start again. You've got to build a whole new network of relationships with completely different people so that you can collaborate and learn how to be able to help other people's businesses. And for, they may have people that they can refer to you, and to embody a new identity of an entrepreneur that knows what they're doing and is running their business, so that I can create that.
Do you ever feel awkward or fake when it comes to telling people about your business or offers? Or feel disheartened when you do talk about what you do and people just don't get it? Don't worry, you're not alone. Many business owners struggle to confidently and comfortably articulate the true value of what they offer. But it's not something that many people teach as the first rule of business. Yet this one skill sets apart the real business owners from the hobbyists. And when you nail it, you can stop feeling like a fraud. And instead of feeling embarrassed when someone asks how your business is going, you can feel proud to speak of the income, impact, and lifestyle that you have created. You shouldn't feel overwhelmed working all the hours or offering discounts just to make ends meet in your business. If you feel that way right now, I have some good news for you. I've created a masterclass that will teach you exactly how to communicate your true value to your dream clients and how you can use this skill to sell without selling. Once you can articulate your true value with confidence and clarity in every interaction, you'll never be left wondering how to attract enough of the right clients to your business. Access your masterclass at melittacampbell.com/training. It's my gift to you to help you grow in confidence and thrive in your business in 2023.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think you really hit on something powerful there with this idea of the identity, because when I ran the network marketing business, it was like a crazy control experiment, because everyone you work with, they all have the same products, same pricing, same training, same marketing, same everything. It really is a business in a box. It's been proven to work. But the one variable is the business owner. And so many of them failed because they couldn't step into that identity of being a business owner. They couldn't see themselves as being successful in their own right. And it was completely a mindset and identity thing. And I found that so interesting. So how did you tackle that? How did you shift your identity? For you, having that mindset background, was that an easy process? Or were there specific tools and strategies that you used?
That's such a great question. I have tools and strategies now because they evolved out of the work that I did. So I would have said at the time that first transition of the shift in identity from going as an employee basically to an entrepreneur was around allowing the grief that I had for that old version of myself and realizing that I actually couldn't take her with me. So it was being able to open myself up to be doing things in a different way, and then really understanding that my old mindset needed to change. And for me, I found that journaling is great, but it just wasn't quite unlocking it quick enough for me. And I was training in various energy modalities because I had an experience where I realized I feel energy. So I'm very intuitive. I can feel what's going on in somebody's body. And so I started to get trained in various different techniques so I could start to use that. And then I found my own way of bringing that experience of the energy healing alongside my background in psychology. I have got a psychology degree and a postgraduate in counseling. So I do naturally kind of think about what's going on in my brain and kind of observing that and thinking, oh, isn't that interesting? That's definitely not my thought. That's come from my mother or wherever. And so what started to happen and made the real difference was when I really started to understand my expectation and my paradigm and the models that I was holding in my brain, how they were creating my reality. And so therefore my identity was creating the reality in that. And of course, having had one identity, which worked very well for me whilst I was in the social services, it needed a new identity to be able to have a successful entrepreneurial business, if that makes sense.
I really love that idea that you mentioned about giving yourself space to have the grief for the person you were. And it is difficult, isn't it? Because I remember it took me back to myself. So I'd been working in my career for 15 years before I started my business, and I'd achieved such a lot in that time, particularly being a woman in a very male dominated industry. To reach the top, I was reporting directly to the CEO, and all of that achievement and being really successful and well known, and then jumping out with that and becoming like nobody and starting all over again. And I hadn't ever really thought about, I never really gave myself the space to Marie Kondo that and say, thank you very much for everything you've done for me, but now it's a new chapter, and closing that properly. I think that's really interesting. And then to take those elements that you've brought with you that are going to be useful and add those to your new identity and then consciously create that. I think that would be such a powerful start point. So when it comes to creating your own identity and therefore reality, is that a simple process? Do you just sort of decide, oh, I'm going to be like so-and-so and then go for it? Or is there more of a process? How do you live into that?
There is more of a process because our subconscious is going to hang on to what's familiar. So it wants to hang on to the old version of ourselves. And so you can start to kind of create some things where you feel like you're sort of straddling two versions of yourself. So what I teach my clients is when to really focus on your identity, and to be able to do that by considering the different levels of consciousness that we all have. We all have these different layers of consciousness. Most people will think of our conscious mind and our subconscious. They'll think their conscious mind is running the show, the subconscious is running the show. And then we have some people call this like a super consciousness or a higher self. I use the language higher self, which is, you may also think of it as that little voice that whispers the intuitive hits that you get. And people will listen to that in some degrees, greater degrees than others. And that is for me, is when we can get those different layers of consciousness aligned and all working in creating that identity. You have got that super conscious, the higher self, leading the way rather than the programming, the habits, the beliefs that don't serve you anymore. People often talk about those as limiting beliefs that are running in the subconscious. And the subconscious is a superpower. It wants to prove itself right. It's going to do everything to bring you back into alignment with the programs that are running. So it's imperative to be able to take control and, like a computer, to program it with what you want. And so when we focus on our identity and to be able to allow the intuition to lead the way, that's where it's a real game changer, and being able to understand what used to be running the show, so you're not bringing those patterns into the next level of your business. If you've been established in business and you're wanting to create it to that next revenue, that's going to take another identity shift. It's the identity that I was when I first started my business 6 years ago is different to the one that I have now running my business, of course, as well. And so what you need to do when you're letting go of old identities is looking at the self-concepts that you have, thinking about in business, the self-concepts that you hold about yourself in relation to marketing and sales, finance, being a leader, leading a team. Of course, everybody's businesses, we all start out as the whole departments, all the departments. And then as our businesses grow, we are able to bring other people on. As a leader, what are the self-concepts that you have in relation to that? And then letting go of any emotions, traumatic memories that have fed into these self-concepts that are part of our identity, so that we're not taking actions based off that identity. And one of the incredible ways to find out what's really going on in your subconscious is muscle testing, and being able to use that to find out what are the true beliefs that we're holding that might be out of alignment with where the identity that we want to create. Because muscle testing, it doesn't lie. It will show you what you truly believe. And often I have found, working with clients, is they'll think it's one thing because their subconscious is creating this story for them to believe, so that it will hide the true belief, so it can keep itself in alignment with the path that it wants to go on. We want to find out what's beneath that story that they're telling themselves as to the reason why, X, Y, and Z has happened, why they've got a business plateau, why the sales haven't been coming in, or whatever it may be. And so that would be a tip that I would share with the listeners, is to use muscle testing to find out what the subconscious is really thinking, so that you can then go, okay, so that's what I truly believe. That's part of the identity that's creating the results that I'm receiving. And then being able to do, I call it in a rewiring and outer rewiring, where you're saying releasing statements. So what you're doing is intentionally declaring that you're making a change, and the subconscious and every cell in your body is listening. And as you do those intentional releasing statements, people will often feel it in their bodies, where they've recognized, oh my goodness, I'm actually holding it. I've got this pain in the side of my body. This is really weird. What's going on there? And then they feel that shift as they let that go. And then the next bit is going, okay, so I'm choosing something different. What do I choose? What is the self-concept that's going to be part of the identity that I really need to embody to be able to take my business to this next level? So some examples of self-concepts could be being an excellent steward of your money, for example. That would be a really good self-concept to have as a successful CEO. Being excellent at sales, obviously, or being really confident in sales. These are great self-concepts to have, to be able to support a successful CEO identity, so that they are being able to feel completely congruent with how they're showing up and how they're feeling about their business. Does that make sense?
And I love this idea that you can choose your identity and then almost deconstruct the one you've got before and then reconstruct it again, kind of do a Lego job using some of the same pieces, adding some new ones, but creating the model that's going to support you for your next stage. Because you're right, you start your business, you're just learning how things work. It's just you doing everything. And then as you have a team, then you have to be, as I said, become a leader. And then you become a leader of leaders. And as you go through the different scales, you have to become a different person. And part of that is learning new skills, but having this new identity is really going to support that learning process and help you move forward. So I love that concept and the idea that, yeah, we can change and choose to support our evolution.
Completely. And I think one of the key things as well is around money consciousness, as I call it, as a business owner. Because, of course, when you're starting your business, you may be experiencing lower levels of income. And then as your business grows, you're having more of a surplus of money coming in and being able to feel confident about having more money coming in. And perhaps your family members may see you differently because you've got more money coming in, and they're going to project all their own money consciousness onto you as a result of that. And being able to handle that, the identity of you as being someone who perhaps has more money than other members in the family, and how you feel about that. And people often fear that their relationships with parents are going to change, or that they don't want to surpass what their mum or dad earned, or that they feel that maybe they don't want to earn it so easily because they saw their mum or dad work really, really hard. There's so much that goes on in our minds behind the scenes, and we're just trying to show up and run a business and serve people, that can have a direct impact on the success of your business.
Yeah, just quickly before we move on, you mentioned muscle testing. What is that exactly?
Oh, thank you for asking. So there's lots of different ways of doing it. One of my favorite ways of doing it is using the sway technique, which is using your body like a pendulum, basically. Your body holds your subconscious. And so this is how you're able to use your body as a way of tapping into the subconscious. And so with the sway technique, just to explain it very briefly for people, you can literally, you ask yourself yes or no questions. And by basically simply standing with your knees soft and your arms by your side, and I often get people to close their eyes when they're doing it, because otherwise your brain's going, what on earth am I doing? This is all a bit weird. So, and then what you do is you say a statement, and then you're either going to get a yes or a no. So I always tell people to just tell your subconscious you're going to go forward for a yes, because we're drawn to things that are positive, and you're going to go backwards for a no. And then you could say, for example, because we can have split beliefs. So if I give some examples so that people, if they're listening and feel like they want to test it, they can see. So you could say, thinking about the revenue that you want for your business, let's say, I'm just going to use the example of 10K months consistently. So you could say, I deserve to have 10K months consistently, and see as you're muscle testing if you go forwards or backwards. You could say, I'm undeserving of having 10K months consistently. And you could get a yes for both of those. And that's because we hold beliefs on different levels of our consciousness. We hold programming from our childhood. We hold programming from what we see in society and media. So that's the next bit to kind of unpick with the muscle testing, as to what is the root of this belief, so we can let the ones go that aren't helpful. And so with that example, when you muscle test, I am deserving to have the 10K months consistently, you haven't got any other beliefs that are going to drain that strength of that belief, so you can fully embody it. But like, yeah, of course I deserve it. It's amazing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. When you say that, I remember going to a workshop at a women's conference a few years ago, and we had to do that exact thing, ask your body a question. And it was amazing. You did either move forward or backwards. In some cases, some of the people fell over.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's an answer.
It's so true. And I find often people, when they first start doing it, their sway is very small, because it can be like that, their brain's going, what am I doing? But also the more you do it, and the more, and we call it energy clearing and changing what's going on in your energy field, the bigger your sway becomes, because there's less kind of stagnant energy around that's kind of keeping you sticky. And you start to feel it. I love using it because it really helps people to really tap into their intuition, start to pay attention to how their body has always been trying to speak to them. They just might not have been paying any attention to it. So I always encourage people to kind of go, okay, just notice as you're asking this question, how are you feeling? And do you feel any sensations in your body? Is it hot? Is it cold? Just to give that space so they can kind of pay attention to how their body's speaking. And it really helps people to connect their brain to their body.
It's like learning a whole nother language, isn't it? Because the internal language of your intuition, as you say, it's in the body and it's subtle. It's just the way you feel, it's certain senses, it's like a muscle feeling a little bit tweaky or something. Whereas we are used to being given information as words and thoughts and formed. So we're not used to tapping into the subtleties of the inner language that we have. So it's really interesting once you start to take a bit of quietness to tap into that and listen to your body and the signals it's already telling you, because it's really so powerful, isn't it?
So powerful. Just some ways that people can really use this is, we were talking about sales earlier and being able to have an identity of being an excellent salesperson, for example, selling is serving, and really being able to sell with integrity, and how when you're recognizing in your behavior if something's happening where you're like, why am I procrastinating on sending that offer letter out to that person who's reached out to it, being able to use muscle testing to find out, okay, what trauma is my subconscious holding that is creating this resistance in my energy field, so that I'm just delaying on doing it and not responding in a timely way. This makes no sense. And then you can muscle test, okay, so am I holding a fear of whatever it may be, a fear that they're going to reject me, they're going to say no? Am I afraid that once this person has received the invitation, that no other leads, no other people are going to step forward, no other potential clients are going to step forward, whatever language you use for potential people that are going to come and enjoy your services? There's so much that can go on that when you use the muscle testing, you can really start to understand how your subconscious has been having an impact on your business, and so that you can then start to take control and to change that.
So anyone listening, while Louisa was talking about sales, you may have noticed in your body already like some tension or your stomach clenching or some kind of intuition coming out for you. So yeah, sales is always a nice juicy trigger word, isn't it?
It is.
So you were talking earlier before we came online about how we can use energy as a strategy for our business. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So when I think of energy, it's everything that is going on in our consciousness. So within our identity, as we've mentioned, and the different layers of consciousness. So a great way for people to understand this is, think of the personal field around you, whether you use the language aura, personal energy field, whatever resonates for you. We're all energy. Everything is energy. So we're just different forms of density and lightness within that. And our body is an incredible electromagnetic field, sending out these waves of frequencies, and they're created from our brain creates thoughts, which are electric frequencies being sent out, and our heart sends out magnetic waves. So we have this electromagnetic frequency that we're sending out into the universe. And the way to think of this is that this frequency that you're sending out is a magnet. So everything that you are sending out in this frequency, like a magnet, you're attracting more of that to you, if that makes sense. So if your self-concept, if we just go back to that, you can see how you can consider that energetically. If the self-concepts and the thoughts that you're having are, I am afraid of offering my services in case people say no, as a magnet, what is that going to create? You're going to have people coming in and saying no. Does that make sense? Because it's going to completely track that. Whereas when you start to change your self-concepts around, well, for example, everybody, just sticking with the theme of sales, everybody says yes because they're so excited to work with me. And you truly believe that, and you can feel that, and you muscle test that that is true for you. And you start to send that frequency out into the universe, things change. I see it all the time in my programs. It's so exciting where people are like, I can't understand, how has this happened? And it's simple when you know how to do it. It's complex though. And so it's really being able to, if you think that we think, I mean, I've heard different quotations in relation to this, 70,000 thoughts a day. So there's a lot going on. And how many emotions we hold at any one moment in the day as well. We can wake up in the morning happy, and then we can feel grumpy because, I don't know, the kitchen's a mess or whatever it may be. And so we have all these emotions that are going on in our field at any moment in time. And so the key is being able to create a new default set point in terms of our baseline frequency that we're sending out, so that we've got more congruence. And so therefore, when we change our energy, we do change our life, we change our experience of life, we change our reality, our business, and everything that we had originally thought possible, because ultimately, when we change our identity, we change our energy.
Yeah, and it makes complete sense when you're really, as I say, congruent with yourself. That energy that you're going to be putting out is going to be so much more powerful and intentional than if you're just kind of bumbling along and never checking in with yourself. So when you're talking about energy, and we're quite often talking on the show about introversion and extroversion, and the fact that it's more about where your energy comes from, does that link into this concept at all?
Absolutely. Because if you've got a concept, and I'm an introvert, so my concept is I'm an introvert. I know I am. And like if I get an opportunity to hermit myself away, I'm there. I'm happiest. But I have created concepts to support me as a business owner to honor the introversion part of myself, to be able to build my business in a way that honors that, and also to embody aspects that are going to help me to share my message more so that I can help the people I'm supposed to help, if that makes sense. And so I truly believe if we think of some typical thoughts that people can have as introverts, potentially might be not wanting to speak on stage, let's say, or doing Facebook Lives because they're an introvert. You can change that and honor who you are at your core by starting to understand, is there any trauma that you're holding that has ultimately created that fear of speaking on stage? Maybe the fear of speaking on stage isn't actually linked to being an introvert, because you can have aspects of some introverts who are, I think the term I've heard is social introverts or extroverted introverts, and all the different facets that we can have, different aspects of that. And so it's thinking about what concepts as an introvert would you like to change so that you can authentically start to create a different version of yourself that is going to feel supported in the different areas of your business. And, you know, thinking of introverts, I would typically think of things to do with sales and marketing and getting out there and people seeing you, being able to be visible and feeling safe to be visible.
Yeah, it's interesting that there are more introverted business owners, more introverted motivational speakers, even. So, you know, there isn't any reason why introverts can't do anything that they want to. It is sometimes just this inner image that we're coming back to, this identity that, oh, that's not possible for me. But as we know, if anyone else is out there doing it, absolutely, it's humanly possible for you. You just have to decide, well, do you want to do that? Does that feel like the right move for you, that you can show up authentically in that manner and have the impact that you want? And if it is, then it sounds like you take that, then you go back and redesign your identity to support that, and then build your energy and everything around that. Is that how it works?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Right, yay.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's being conscious around who do I want to become and what kind of qualities, and how can I require more of myself to step into the leader that I desire to be, and that my business is asking me to be as I grow my business. And so then thinking around what will come up for people is around boundaries. You know, boundaries are such a huge part of being able to create a business that has got good foundations for it to grow. And this is the boundaries within the business. It could be linked to do with payment plans and all those sorts of things. It's thinking about, okay, so what is being reflected back to me in my reality that I'm not so keen on, that I would like to change? Okay, so something within me has created that as part of my identity. What do I need to change in my identity? So I'd say, you know, focus on your identity, consciously create your identity to ultimately reveal aspects of yourself of who you truly are and what you would like to embody, and consciously work with your subconscious so that you can take control. It's not off running its show, just trying to bring you back into the programs that it's running, so that you can really unlock that. So to use the muscle testing to unlock it, to become a master at asking questions in the right way within the muscle testing, that is key.
And is there a way, maybe you just answered it, but is there a way to ensure that you are staying in the realm of, this is what I want for me, this is what I would like, versus I feel as a business owner, I should be doing this and I should be out there doing these things, and therefore I need to be this person. So rather than feeling it from within that this is the direction I want to go in and this is where I want to grow into, to feeling almost pushed, well, you know, this is where I have to be in order to have success as a business owner, but it's coming from perhaps external expectations or what we believe those expectations to be. Is there a way we can tell a difference between the two?
There is. This is where it gets complicated, in that because our resistance can come up from a number of different areas. One, it can be actually the fear beyond what we see in front of us. So let's say, for example, I don't know, let's talk about going on a podcast or a Facebook Live, and you're feeling the resistance, and it's like, oh no, but I should go on a podcast because my coach told me, etc. But I really don't want to. The resistance could be a number of different things. The resistance could be actually the fear is the increased visibility beyond the podcast. the actual podcast itself, and therefore then the success and the greater income that you could potentially get over time as a result of going on podcasting, for example, or doing the Facebook Live, whatever it is that you're doing consistently. And so it's knowing the questions to ask in terms of, okay, is this actually resistance because I'm afraid of having the result that I say I desire? Therefore, what's the trauma going on behind the scenes? Is there a change in the identity? What are the thoughts and emotions and beliefs that need to be let go of? Or is this actually my soul saying this just isn't, it doesn't feel in alignment, this marketing feels icky, this whatever it might be, this feels like there's got to be a different way. And that's where the muscle testing can really help to unpick what is resistance to the outcome that you desire, and therefore it is in your highest interest to step forward and do that, even though your muscle testing is saying no, because you're like, oh my god, I don't want those results. Or actually is it because it's truthfully this is not the right strategy for you? And that's where being able to really know the questions to ask to get to the truth, so that you're, like you were saying, listen to your body when you're talking about sales. How are you responding? So that you can recognize where the alignment is, so that you're able to make the right decision moving forward. It's a big topic that you asked there, so I was trying to collect, thinking, oh my word, this is like a
and our brain is very clever, isn't it, about wrapping, like, for example, we tell ourselves all kind of excuses, but they feel like real barriers, and they don't even exist. They're all made up, but it helps us feel safe and know it's okay to stay here. You don't have to do this. All these strategies we've developed over a very long time, and often without being consciously aware of it, can really stand in the way. So it's important to take some time to unpick those and just tune in with how you're really feeling and how to interpret that, so you can move forward with everything that you want to move forward with.
And I'd say if you're feeling that push and the resistance to it, is sort that bit out before you move forward with it, because otherwise you're going to create wonky results, whether that is the right step for you or not. But it's like, listen to that body, listen to how you're feeling, and so that you can go, right, hang on a second, something's bubbling up here, I need to sort this out so that I can move forward either way, feeling good about the decision that you've made and how you're moving forward. And that's to say, because sometimes we're, of course, all entrepreneurs, we have to take risks, and sometimes those risks can get your tummy flip. But it's being able to take the action, feeling in alignment, feeling excited and perhaps nervous, because it's feeling like a calculated risk, but you're excited about the potential, etc. That's different to the kind of hard resistance that you can feel. Don't take action when you've got that resistance going on.
Yeah, and it's so important, isn't it, to remove all of that resistance, because we were talking before about one thing that you have to get comfortable as a business owner is you do not know what's coming next. You do not know if anything that you're doing is going to work, because we can't predict the future. We can only trust based on previous evidence, our education. It's all a big experiment. But if you have that resistance, then that's going to be really difficult to take those steps forward. But if anyone is listening to this, I mean, we've kind of ventured into the woo-woo space a little bit. And as you said, it is complex with so many different layers, so many places to start and think about and come back to, and all of this. Where would anyone listening to this and understanding these concepts for the first time, where would be the best place for them to start?
I've got a free PDF guide that talks people through how to do the muscle testing. I'm very happy to share the link with you if that would be helpful.
Wonderful.
It's like a step-by-step, do this. And I know people that I have shared it with have really found it valuable. It's focused on unlocking your money blocks, and I give you sort of 6 examples to work with. So I would suggest that, so that you can see if the muscle testing is something that you want to play with. I'd highly recommend it. It's completely changed my life. And that's where I'd recommend starting. And recognizing within that, if you're in that space where you're thinking, I don't know about this, I would invite you to just become aware of your body. And when you're making decisions, just start to notice if you can notice anything. People feel things very differently. And so particularly very busy people often are sort of, their head and their heart's completely disconnected because they're thinking in their brains so much. And so if that's you and you're like, I can't feel anything in my body, I don't know what she's talking about, please stay with it. And I would just invite you to start doing some heart-centered breathing, where what I mean by that is just becoming aware of your heart. So you're bringing your attention to your heart as you're doing breathing, so that you're basically playing with your consciousness and bringing its attention to different things. And just to start there, so that you can start to become aware of your body and how your body is speaking to you all the time.
Fantastic. We all have some great homework to do there.
Yes, I've given you lots of homework.
Yeah. So Louisa, as you said, we've covered so much and you've given real insight as to what can be holding us back and how we can start to change our identity and how we believe ourselves to unlock the next level. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you feel the audience should know?
I think we've covered everything. It really is to change your energy, using your energy as a strategy. It's going to make things a whole lot easier. And, so as we've covered, focus on your identity. So you can really consciously, from a psychological perspective, start to think about who you want to become and how you're going to require more of yourself. And then to find a way that's going to work for you to unlock what is going on with your subconscious. And if it resonates, I highly recommend using muscle testing. And then the third tip, just to kind of explain the next part of once you've found out what's going on in your subconscious, is to be really proactive around intentionally saying, I'm going to change this belief. That belief is not serving me anymore. And in my PDF guide, I've got some phrases that you can use that really, really work to help you speak to your subconscious so that it's paying attention and takes on a new program. And so to let go of the old programs, to transmute those, and then to think, okay, what is the belief that's going to serve me? I'm going to take this belief for a spin and see how it's going to work for me. So you can start to do that imprinting so that you're changing your consciousness.
Sounds fantastic. So I'll be sure to put the link to that PDF in the show notes. So if you go to melittacampbell.com/podcast or /Louisa's name, then you'll get directly to those show notes and you can download that PDF there. Louisa, if anyone wants to know more about the work that you do, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
Oh, thank you. I'd love to connect with everybody. I'm on all the social media platforms. I tend to hang out on Facebook the most. So come and find me, simply Louisa Havers on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. Instagram and Facebook are my favorite places to hang out, so pop me a message there and we can have a chat.
Wonderful. And I'll add those links into show notes as well. Louisa, this discussion has been fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you took away as much value as I did. And if you enjoyed the show, then I'd love it if you leave a review on iTunes and share this podcast with your network and business besties. There are a lot more tools, tips, and insights coming up for you in the next episode, so don't miss next week's podcast. Or better still, subscribe now so you never miss your weekly dose of inspiration. I've been Melitta Campbell, business coach and value whisperer, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next episode.